Hello, hello, good afternoon. It's Helen here at Futurely. I'm just going to get my co-hosts, if they can, to turn their cameras on. There's Hannah, hello. This is where Mia and Anya are now desperately looking for the camera. Well done. See, everyone's become Zoom pros in lockdown, I tell you. Listen, just before I introduce my co-host, it's a tiny bit of housekeeping. We've had over 200 people register for today's session, so I think kind of speaks volume for where we're all at, I think, in terms of this particular sector. But we are all still at home. So just as you're all coming in now, just please note that there will be background noise, the internet will be ropey, dogs will bark, all the usual things will happen. We'll just roll with the punches. If for any reason we do get cut off, I will restart it, so please just join. Now I am recording today's session. I will share it with all of you after today so that you can share it with, if you are an accountant who's on the call, you can share it with your salons that you advise. Equally, if you are a salon that's on the call, you can then share it with your teammates and co-workers. And without further ado, I will start to introduce my co-host. So before I flip to get them to introduce themselves, I just want to explain why we're talking to them. So over the past couple of months, we've done these bounce back webinars talking to different sectors that have experienced the last few months of COVID. And today we are joined by the brilliant Mia and Anya from the Francesco group. Now they have got an impressive 40 salons, 200 plus apprentices, academy, and many, many war wounds, I think, over the past few months that they're going to talk to us about shortly. I'd say probably a big one is government advice or lack of. We're still slightly in the dark, so we're going to try and talk about the plans for reopening and as best as they can, but keep the questions coming to them as we go through. We are great believers in answering questions on that slide and not saving them till the end. So down at the bottom there is a chat box. Stick any questions you have in that chat box, and both Hannah and I will field our way through them and pass them to both Anya and Mia. So without further ado, I will first of all introduce my co-host, Hannah Dawson. If you could just take and explain why we're both on the call.
Yes, this is the standard line where I say that I'm bigging it up for the small businesses, and Helen's here representing the accountants who help the small businesses. So Futurely is all about trying to make sure that small businesses have everything that they need to help themselves make the best decisions today, especially if they're going to impact their future, which every decision typically does. But of course, we serve small businesses directly as well as accountants who are helping their small business portfolio. So whatever we can do to help in that sense as well is why Helen and I are both here, but we also do everything together anyway, which is also another reason. And without further ado, I will then hand the reins over to Mia to give an introduction as well.
Yay! I think, first of all, thank you so much. I'm very humbled to be on the same platform as these two amazing superpower shows. No, thank you, girls. Really is wonderful, and it's wonderful to have an opportunity. Myself, Mia, yes, it's Deli Compagni, otherwise known as Palmer. Those who know me a bit better.
Yeah, and those who can't pronounce your surname.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
So I'm managing director, and I sit alongside two other managing directors. Anya being one of them that's here today. My division is predominantly in the southern region, but I also sit alongside Anya and Ben in other areas of the business. So that's me, girls.
Perfect.
And Anya?
Anya?
Hi, we've not met yet.
No, nice to meet you both, Helen, Hannah and everyone. As Mia said, I'm Anya, Deli Compagni, Managing Director for Francesco Group. The main area that I lead within the company is the salon side, which is franchised. Which I think as me and Mia talk about the journey of the company, that will understand of where that fits. But predominantly obviously work very closely with Mia and our other co-director, Ben, who's not with us today.
Perfect. And where are you both based? Mia, you're in Bournemouth, I know that. But Anya, where are you based?
In Staffordshire. Okay.
You've stayed in the Midlands. You haven't run to the south coast for the weather, which I hope everybody on the call is experiencing today. Summer is here. Right, before we get distracted and talk about the weather, let's actually hear the full story of the background, because you are a very large company with all sorts of different streams. So can you just take us through it? Where did it start? And take us through what the year looked like before.
Yeah, of course. So Helen, Anya and I were sort of going through this before, and I could take up the whole of the next hour and so on this journey, because it's a 52-year-old business, okay? We are the next generation. I'm very proud of that. So where we stand today, as you said, 40 salons franchised, 3 training academies, Birmingham, Hull and Stafford, and dovetails into that is our apprenticeship private training provider of circa at any point in time 200 apprentices. So that's where we are. How did we get here? Okay, so we're going to rewind to my father, whose name is Francesco. I know many people do ask, where did the name come from? But yeah, otherwise known as Frank and various other names. But so Francesco, he was brought over to England. My granddad was a prisoner of war, not educated. When it came to the choice of career and options, he saw an opportunity to work with women all day, make them feel beautiful, you know. So these are the stories that kind of resonate with me. And he went to a pretty dire college. It was a college of technical and mining in Cannock, if anybody knows Cannock. So that was where his basis start. And it's important that I say that, because that was the basis of him learning what bad education. So from poor education, he then realised that how could we turn this around. Very motivated, upbeat guy, got himself a van, did the mobile, etc. And then I'll fast forward a bit, got his first salon. Little brother comes along, Anya's dad, who's Pete, who today is our chairman. Pete joins into the business, and the two of them very quickly were dynamic, very different people. I wouldn't say we're different, yeah, we're different skill sets, but the end goal, that was as important, the end goal that they both had. They always had a vision, and they were always so motivated. So these two good-looking Italian guys, yeah, swinging 60s is happening. Sassoon's come onto this radar, fashion's there, they're doing brilliantly. Mixed into that, we had a family salon in Italy, a family member, where dad went and learnt exactly what the journey of understanding what good service was. You stand for your king and queen. That was always inbred from us from a very early age. So, you know, this real service element mixed with the best of hairdressing that had come onto the scene, and they grabbed hold of that ethos and that belief. So the two of them working together, they grew very quickly and rapidly to about 8 or 9 salons. Then the crunch hit. How do we keep growing? And there was cracks starting to appear. How do we keep this dynamic of a good team with a leader and still grow? And this was, I'd say, around about in the 80s. Those old just remember or realise it was a real hit for franchising. You know, the big names were really starting to come forward, particularly in eateries and hairdressing as well. You know, the likes of Tony and Guy, those big names were coming forward. So that's where franchising was born. Alongside the franchising model was obviously a need to keep the standards. Obviously, they knew they had to grow a brand, but they also needed to maintain those standards. Back to Dad's experience with his poor education, he was always passionate. There's always kind of been his side of the baby to really grow and develop the education side. And again, they had the foresight then to jump onto the government funding side. I think back in those days it was YTS. Remember?
Okay,
Yeah. So they grew their first academy. This allowed for the salons then to, again, another strong culture in our world is grow your own. So we started to grow our own people. Yeah. So this ethos and this grew us very quickly and allowed us to get to where we are today. Small little aside from that, we also had the opportunity to buy a group of salons on the South Coast from doing, we did some work with the salon owner, sorry, the group owner. We did some consultancy on franchising, and we quite regularly do that within our fields of expertise. And when he came to sell, he approached us. It was a similar brand and similar business model. So we took on that opportunity to grow. Hence I'm in Poole, because people don't always get there. Why is it in the Midlands and why are you in the South Coast? So we brought the group of salons and have developed that now. So we have the academy infrastructure around there. Amazing. So that's probably the middle-sized version.
Anya's like, oh, is she ever going to stop?
Yeah, I think we'll come back to, I want to remember, because I think the service piece is such an interesting piece of the puzzle in the new world. So we're going to park that. Remember to come back to that bit, because if that was in your mission and ethos from the beginning, what kind of happens now? But we won't talk about it now. Anya, I'm going to pass the reins to you for a second. Tell us just quickly take us through the numbers and then tell us what 2020 looked like before it hit.
Yeah, great. So kind of obviously early new year, we had a very clear business plan set between myself, Mia and Ben, the managing directors, in that we'd got a 5-year plan in place for the company, and a little bit of going back into the past. We'd had a number of years where, again, something that, whether it's a strength or you could see it as a weakness as a company, sometimes we get involved in too many areas. And we have people within the company sort of going off doing different things. And it's that, do we really truly do what we do well because we're all off? And what was very clear that we set as a strategy, that what we do as a company is franchising and apprenticeship training program schemes. Yeah. And that is what we were purely going to dedicate ourselves to. And as the three of us as leaders of the company, it was very clear on the areas we were individually going to lead as well, because previously we were doing a bit of a mix between us. And so that was the sort of plan for the year. With that, it gave a few challenges in that, obviously very busy, our daily workloads as a company, it never stops. There's always things going on. So sometimes when we want to make changes, the workloads and the operations of day-to-day things sort of almost cause a blockage for you doing them as quick as you want to. But in general, like I say, that was our plan as the three leaders. Okay. And the plan was really for the 5-year strategy that we needed to grow our cash reserves within the company. We needed to get the balance of what our profits were in line with the outgoings. Mm-hmm. So we had a very clear 5-year plan going forward of how we were going to improve in that area. And really, that probably took us very close to when obviously this huge change went on that totally blew that out the water.
Yeah, the world fell over, I think is how we've described it.
Yeah, definitely.
But were there any, if we start to look at shutdown, were there any early indicators before we were actually told that we had to lock down? Were things changing for you guys?
I think, I mean, everybody was aware. I don't know about you, but it seems like a fog, doesn't it? That sort of 13 weeks or however many weeks ago, kind of hit this world. And I remember very clearly sort of speaking to Anya and Ben, London was actually shutting ahead. And that was, yes, it was on the news, and yes, there'd been the odd case here and there, but the time when salons started shutting in London, which actually was probably a couple of weeks before we'd actually got to that point, was the real point where panic was starting to set in. Because if London does it, it's sure as hell we're going to follow. When are we going to follow? How are we going to follow? So that was the real crunch for us, sort of following, and not just that, other countries. Obviously, Italy. We were watching Italy. What's happening there, and trying to find any relation that we could. But it was seriously. It was just watching and okay, what's next?
Did you have people cancel, or was it mainly led by
No, extreme opposite. It was so
people were trying to get it done.
Honestly, like, I can only describe it like if any of you've seen the film Titanic, and you just keep going for us, and clients, it was the knock-on effect of we're desperately trying to get in because everyone foresees that they're not going to get the hair done for some time. So it was incredibly busy, and we were trying to obviously gauge that balance of how long should we keep going, can we keep going. And I think it was the Saturday just before the lockdown was the 23rd, which was the Monday, and then that Saturday morning, I think me and Mia we were on the phone to our franchisees from the crack of dawn. There was a feeling of we have to stop now, as much as it pained us, because we were full we had the following few weeks full.
Of course you did. And it's just money, of course, isn't it? That's all of your pipeline, it's revenue, it's customers.
So were those like early indications, you know, as a you know, holding business, and talking about those cash reserves, as you mentioned beforehand, were there any immediate, you know, cost savings or, you know, protective actions that you took yourselves, you know, immediately at that point?
Yeah, and go on, Anya.
It's like me and you, Helen. It's brilliant. It's good. We did each other's ears to go along with something to say.
So the actual holding side of the company, which is what we have direct control of, again, and this is, you know, sometimes, again, on reflection, we sometimes don't make our moves quick enough, but we were adamant this time we were not going to wait. We needed to be quick. So that week before lockdown, within our sort of holding structure, that's head office academies, we started to sort of batten down any sort of wages that we could control. So went into laying people off, which was obviously extremely hard. It was that feeling of everything was sort of stopping, closing down. We didn't have any vision of how it was going to be. In hindsight, was that maybe because about 2 days after that, furlough scheme came in.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think all our teams were so with us in that we just had to be reactive. We were doing everything to protect the company as much as we could. That was the key.
And I think that was the comforting bit. I remember in the industry, Anya, everybody was saying we're all in this together. You know, there's this sort of everybody, social media, we're all in this together. And we took sort of comfort from that. And it wasn't a case of we could do anything necessarily wrong, but at the same time, it was a nice bit of comfort, wasn't it? Because our teams knew we were doing this to save a business and save their jobs. Whatever we acted, it was for the good of them, not just the good of us. So, you know, we were sending that message out loud and clear.
Did you take any actions with suppliers? I mean, you know, you've got you know, investors as well, and you know, of course, it's all the and as I ask these questions, of course, there's different businesses within the business, so I guess each have different approaches that you have to take.
Yeah. So with the apprentice, if I just talk about the apprenticeship side, maybe just a little bit. Obviously, our finances come from the government, so that's government funded through there. So again, it was trying to get that information. Do we carry on? How do we carry on? How do we keep those apprentices engaged? Because while they're on program, then obviously that funding, and while they're being trained, we can have that. So irrelevant. We reacted pretty darn quick, and we did. I've got to say, the education team did a great thing. And this Zoom, I know it's all second nature to us, isn't it? Why didn't we do it before?
Only now. Just in terms of, obviously, the franchise with the network itself, and actually we had similar conversations. We were talking to Jim, so F45 earlier, and they were saying that actually the F45 franchisees, you guys, did really look after them in terms of fees and support and guidance. Did you do the same thing for your franchisees, or something, as much as you can for your franchisees?
Yeah. So obviously, from the royalties point of view, if they're not taking anything, we're not taking anything. So that's done. We also charge an administration fee, and we very quickly just reduce that to a minimum. Amazing. So again, we help support them. And I've got to say, I mean, L'Oreal are our main suppliers, and they've been absolutely phenomenal with us through all this. You know, all payments were stopped, etc. So yeah, we've been very lucky. And Anya, can you add anything? Because you were sort of very much more involved on the payment side in the early days.
Yeah, the key was that we jumped on as much as we could, as far as to keep enough cash in the businesses, in the salons and ourselves as possible, while it was all unknown. So a lot of our key suppliers that we work with, you know, even the likes of landlords, we did everything we could to potentially put a deferment on payments or set something up so that we were just able to know how it looked for the future.
So I think landlords has been quite a big one that a lot of people have real problems with, and they're probably the one that's been the least flexible. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've got sort of 40 head leases. So as the franchisor, we are responsible for those head leases. I'd say the majority
Yeah, it's been consistent across these bounce backs. It's disappointing because actually what's been really positive out of so many of these is, like you said, everybody's in this together. Everyone knows that there's a knock-on effect. If you just give a little bit, you know, even if you just reduce it by a little piece, it helps a little piece somewhere else kind of work. But landlords seem to be the bit that are the brick wall that people just...
And I think what we were very conscious of is everybody kept wanting to defer payment, which is helpful, we know, as the cash flow situation. But at the same time, we were very conscious to guide the franchisees that actually, if you keep deferring, you're only building up a bigger problem to open to. So, you know, let's just sort of...
I guess the only upside, and we will come into the future, is that there's going to be the Titanic effect of before will happen again in a minute, won't it? You're the only industry, I think, that can probably guarantee that. I think a lot of others are trying to defer without that confidence of what's going to be the return, which is the only slight difference.
So what is the biggest learning during the shutdown period that you think that you've had, and would you have done anything differently?
I think for me, the real positive that we have to keep reminding ourselves on in this hard time is that it's allowed us to really take a magnifying glass at every aspect of the business. And it's allowed us to make changes an awful lot quicker than what we would have if we were running as normal.
Yeah.
And that's a real positive thing, that we've been able to really do that.
And it's allowed us to encourage, again, so franchisees are salon owners at the end of the day. So we're, you know, again, passing on what we're focusing on. Okay, it might be different areas, but allowing them to do the same as well. So what we always say, we have never got enough time. You know, it's always like, we've never got enough time. Well, boy, we've had time. You know?
Well, Mia, can I just tell you that hot off the press, one of our viewers, one of the people that are watching, have just said it's just been confirmed by the PMs that salons will open on the 4th of July with visors.
Oh,
so, yay! 2 meters.
Yeah, we'll be
2 meters. But also the 1 meter rule from the 4th of July. So that's brilliant. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for the update.
Oh, is that Mr. Fishwick?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, well done. You know who it is. But that was this is a well-timed webinar. So now everything that you're about to say in the future can change. Look, let's talk about, we have talked roughly about financials as we've gone through this, but I mean, we always ask this. It sounds like a ridiculous question, but cash flow, you know, was it actually the biggest financial worry that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. Cash is king in our industry. And as Anya had already said, we put a 5-year plan to actually start to build our cash reserves up. And the rug's being pulled from under our feet on that basis. So we had to we encourage the franchisees. We had to then, yes, we've used the grants. Yes, we've used the loans. Yes, we've gone to the banks, etc. And we encourage our franchisees to do the same. This is survival. This is, profits. Will we make any? Won't we make any? No, cash is king and survival. That's our focus. Yeah. Next year, that's a different story. But to get through this period of time, that's where our energies are most focused.
In terms of sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, just how many models, Anya, when you guys are preparing your financials, how many different, because I can guarantee you weren't going into 2020 with a 0 revenue as your worst case ever. No one was doing that. So how many different models and trigger points, because I know that when we've been looking at even ours, they'll be like, okay, if revenue drops, so this is a trigger point and we'll take action on that thing, or that, so there's different ones in play that have that will have different actions off the back of them. Have you done a similar thing?
Yeah, at first we did that, and I think again we almost reacted a bit too soon, because as the government have announced the further furloughing scheme, it just helps support actually the impact that it could have and be good for us. So this is where it's hard, because we could look into every situation possible, and it's all been if, buts, maybes. Obviously the guessing for us, we now know we're opening on the 4th, but all our cash flow and predictions have been that we're going to be back up and running on the 4th, and that's when our income stream starts to come back. So now we're saying thank God, because we haven't got to adjust that.
Great.
Our plan is in line. But that's all we've been able to go off, And
were you modelling 2 meters and 1 meter, and whether actually there was viability
The salon opening, we were doing it based on 2 meters.
Okay.
So obviously, again, this will make such a great relief to just the operations of working, that potentially we can have more staff in at the same time, because it depends on the location of the salon layout and things.
And
how are you?
Sorry, just one final question in the stream. Did you find with any of the salons, just because of square meterage, for instance, that viability was just not possible under 2 meters, and it was actually you're not going to be able to open until a further date? Because I know we've had
a lot of them
that we did
a lot have gone down the route that they were splitting their teams up, and they were almost opening the hours and days up 7 days a week, full hours, and sort of changing shift patterns, so it's almost sort of take it in turns.
Brilliant.
I think
no one was at a stage where it was going to be a point where they couldn't open up, they couldn't make it viable.
The fear factor in the guidelines was there was talk of one-on-one. So, for example, ladies, you have your highlights done. While your highlights are processing, however, that dead time, so it's now, you couldn't get anybody physically in the middle of that.
Sorry, that was a dog.
So that's it, and I don't know till the guidelines come. So it's ensuring that normally you'd have somebody in between. Yeah, so that column could probably only run at maybe 60%, whereas as opposed to 100%. So that again is the challenge. Might be, don't know till I've read what Boris has told us, but I don't think that is going to be if they've dropped it to a metre.
Yeah,
I think
it sounds like they've
How's
much support, again, back as the franchisor, how much financial advice and guidance, how involved are you with the forecast that your salons are putting together, or are they just left to a degree to their own devices to run it?
And you
we very much do hold their hand, and again, part of the support, although the general company will try to keep furlough to support us as much as possible, we've had our head office still up and running, and that we have an accounts department, wages, that's all had to stay as normal, because they need that obviously support while they're trying to plan all these things in place. So very much by their side. For us, it's a team effort. We work by their side, helping as much as possible.
And this is, it's a personal question to you guys, but the head office function, of course, the focus is on the franchisees and making sure that they're okay and making sure the academy is okay. But you only exist here if that's working. Have you guys been okay? How many are in the head office function in total?
Very, very few, because again, we've got a mix of some are able to do their workload from home. But there's generally about 4 people in the head office on a daily basis, which is hardly any compared to the normal amount. And but it's been challenging, hasn't it, Mia? There's things.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like we should talk about reopening now that we've just had the big headline. And I guess, now that you've got the date confirmed, I appreciate we just found out on the call, but now what does the next 6 months look like? What are your plans to reopen? How are you tackling them?
So what we've been doing is liaising strongly with the franchisees. As ever, communication is key. And how we've been trying to take guidelines, as I was just trying to say before, guidelines from all areas. But we've been working again strongly with L'Oreal, strongly with NHBF, which is National Hairdressers Beauty Federation. So, and we also have somebody that does trailblazers for our industry. So it's trying to ensure that we know what we can advise our franchisees with. And it was always a case of prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So is it a visor and a mask? We'll get both. Yeah, let's ensure that we've got everything in place. And utmost, to put a headline on it, our customers and our staff have to feel looked after and have to feel safe. That goes without any question. What do the next 6 months look like? Both Anya and I attended a webinar yesterday, and again, learning from other countries, there's so much positivity.
Okay.
The clients are actually, they don't want to let go of us. Now they've got back in with us, like we had a challenge in our industry probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, where we went from 6 weekly, probably longer than that, but 6 weekly appointments. You know, when I was training, you saw your client every 6 weeks, once a week for a blow dry. Yeah. Now that client space time is more 10 to 12 weeks. So the trend now that's happening abroad in other countries is it's reversing back to shorter time frames.
Really?
They've missed.
Why? Because people are panicking just in case there's an increase.
Yeah, in case
It's
there's another one. It's like, I've got you and I'm not letting go of you. And
they've missed that feeling of having the hair done, that feeling that it gives them. I think it's just, that's what makes
I said, I did message Mia. I messaged Mia last night and said, I'm half Grammy. Please God, when are they opening? So now we know.
I'm not sure if, I don't know if you've picked up on it, but the amount of press hairdressing's had from day one of lockdown to now is more than any other industry.
Amazing.
A story.
That and hospitality, I would say, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in terms of all the PPE, so, I mean, someone's just done a clarification, actually. I'm just going to read it out because somebody has put it in the notes. So Ian has noted and said the rule is 1 metre plus, i.e. 2 metres where you can, but otherwise it's 1 metre as a minimum, and there should be mitigating factors if it's only a metre. So brilliantly clear, open to interpretation ruling there. But in terms of PPE and all of that, and back to the thing we talked about at the beginning, is that sit and chat with your customer, get to know them. Where are your plans there? Have you bought the kit? Have you advised your teams?
Yeah.
We've got it all sat ready and waiting.
And what is it all? What, I mean, is it advisor? Is it?
And do they have to behave differently? Do they have to behave differently?
What they're saying now is that you just purely wear a visor now. We were unsure whether they would bring that. I think they've removed face coverings, but again, for us, for Francesco Group, what's so important is that we want people to come through our doors and feel safe, feel secure. And it's important that that happens with our staff, our clients. So we will still offer clients a face mask, because at the end of the day, when you're doing someone's hair, you are still very close. So we'll do everything we can to make everyone feel like they're getting the protection they need, but at the same time not lose that luxury one-to-one interaction.
That will still maintain things like serving drinks and offering magazines and all of those things. Is there a line that's been drawn, or will that maintain?
Yeah. I was just going to say the magazines, that's been a no-no. Say we're going to remove those. Drinks, that's kind of a debatable one at the moment. If we do it in disposable cups, will be the deciding factor on whether they do that. Again, I do know some salons that are still going to serve food, etc. I think we've got to do a soft opening, haven't we? And we've got to gradually build things in where I know our teams will perform, and I know they'll raise the game. You know, just because we haven't got a drink, just because they haven't got a magazine, doesn't mean that their experience is going to be anything less. I am fully.
Marks and Spencer's around the corner, all of their little party size ones will go through the roof, won't they? All the ones that you can take into a tray. People be bringing their own.
There was a report yesterday that was saying that they were going to advise hairdressers not to talk to their customers, because of course you're transferring air or whatever the ruling is on it. I mean, where are you guys standing on that one? Is it a muted experience now?
Oh, if I could try and, there's no way I'm going to keep my customers quiet. No. And there's no way I'm not going to answer them. There's no way. We cannot, you know, we're in your space. We've got a face covering. We are, just by the very nature of our industry, we are hygienic. We actually wash our hands probably 10 times a day, if not more. True. You know, we get products on our hand, we wash our hands. We're shampooing, we're washing our, we actually, by the very nature, we have cleanliness. We clean down every section anyway. So the very nature of the cleanliness, personally, I think you cannot go into a more clean, safe environment. It's just that personal space.
Are you going to have to remodel the salons in any way now with this ruling of the 1 metre, I guess, as the guidelines?
No, because I still think it stands that as you social distance as much as you possibly can. So, you know, dependent on the layout of the salon, you know, if some of this, for example, the sections that you sit at when you have your hair done, if they're a bit too close, they'll obviously space them out or have the chair next to you then free. Same, obviously, when you're at the backwash having your hair done. We're not pack it in. We will still tread it, like Mia says, very cautiously. We want there to be a sort of soft opening, although we know we're going to have huge demand and we've got mounds of lists of people that want appointments. It's all about, it's our duty of care to make you feel safe when you're in our doors.
So are there any top line indicators that you're going to monitor? So, and what we're not expecting, it's the second spike thing. It's all of those sorts of things. Are there any, lead indicators on top? So bookings levels or whatever, or how your staff are coping with it? Are there any new things from a metrics perspective that you think you'll need to monitor? Or is it just business as usual and a soft launch through?
Well, the majority of salons, obviously from the time we had to physically shut to now, that time period, we had clients that were booked in. They're the clients that we have to see as priority because they had a booking with us, and we will do our best to contact them first. Mm-hmm. Then obviously we'll open up our phone lines as normal to try and then obviously, but it's so hard because for us, every client is a priority and means the world to us. And we've got clients that have been coming to us for over 50 years from the minute it started. There's we want everyone to say it. We want to open our doors and get people in as soon as, but obviously there's a reality of that happening as well.
I mean, on that, balancing that up, obviously you've done this kind of staged soft launch, as you said, Mia. Are you going to extend it? Because you've got to recoup the revenue that's been lost over the past 2 to 3 months. So are you going to extend the hours to enable you to fill the tills up, if you like, quicker than you would have done previously to try and make up for the last few months and deal with the influx?
There's been so much discussion over the past couple of months, also, and not just with Francesco Group as an industry, and I know it's still very much hot topic. Do we put prices up? Are clients going to accept that? Do we charge for the PPE? Will clients accept that? So all these different areas. Where we've always stood is we charge for time and for the level of the profession that you're having with experience. So we have encouraged our franchisees to look at your timings. So therefore, again, back to your time utilization to ensure that your timings are correct in line with your prices. We take the stance that people, as Anya just said, if we welcome a customer into our salon, it's up to us to make it safe for you. I don't believe we should pass that charge back on to the customer. I think that's our ownership, that's our responsibility. And it's not going to be forever. It's not. We won't be, magazines, those costs will soon be absorbed. So as long as we can keep our productivity in line with our prices, then we'll be a-okay.
But what do you think? Do you think there's a massive threat? What is the biggest threat ahead?
Another COVID.
Yeah.
We're all saying that.
Again.
So what's happened in Germany? Because they've gone back up. They've had this increase, haven't they? Has that impacted the salons in Germany or not yet?
Good question. I don't know, to be honest, Helen.
I've not heard that they've actually been shut down as of yet.
Okay.
And just off the franchisees for 1 second and looking at the apprentice side, what does that look like today? And how have they been impacted?
Ask the question again, sorry, Hannah, the first bit.
The apprentices, the apprenticeships and that side of things. I've seen, on the Instagram that they've still been working from home. They've been practicing on dummies and all of those sorts of things. It's been brilliant. I can stick my head out the window, they can do it. But, what's been the impact for them and how does that side of the business look now and going forward?
Sure. So again, obviously we moved it to Zoom online training. And what we've been able to do is, obviously there's a certain percentage of their qualification that's theory based. So all that is kind of nicely ticked off, so to speak. What we had, we have a real scenario where we have to get them through what's called an endpoint assessment. So if we compare that, say, to a GCSE, it's like taking their final exam. Okay, so every level 2 apprentice now has to take this endpoint assessment. It's a live test with clients with an external examiner. That should have happened March, April and May. So these guys, bless them, have been in the background. They're all set up to take this exam to pass their qualification. So we were very fortunate. We got to open our academies on the 15th of June. Yay. So again, just from an aesthetics, just from a feel, that was a brilliant way to get physical beings and bodies through our salons, and be able to show that was great. But we've been working on, like you say, blocks. Now we've got the 4th of July, we will then be able to obviously move them forward, working on models. We have a timetable, because normally we would shut down July, August anyway. Not now. we will adapt our timetable to ensure, you know, that we can work that through. So it's just a case of timings and timetabling, making sure, you know, the very nature of apprentices, we do safeguarding, we do pastoral care, you know, all those soft skills are very much key focus as well at the moment.
Good. Anya, you were saying earlier on that you'd had the opportunity to look closely at the business and kind of make some changes. How different does the business look now when it's reopening because of those changes that you've made?
I'd say it's more at myself, Mia and Ben's level, because like I say, between the 3 of us, we were very much together, overseeing a lot of areas together. And now we've clearly separated who is leading what area. So it's more so from our teams of managers and down, that they're very clear now of who it is that leads the areas of the business. So for Ben, he heads up the apprenticeship side. And for myself and Mia, we head up the salon side.
And I guess having that single focus means that you are looking closer than ever at those lead indicators that Hannah was talking about before. I guess bearing in mind the biggest threat, as Mia, you said, is this potential return or, you know, an upturn in the R rating. What are the indicators you are eyeballs on at all times?
That I think the minute, obviously, we now are back in July, and if there's any change with the predictions we've made with, you know, the income coming in, we have got to react. You know, we've been good till now. We've been able, I think, to get enough things in place financially to keep us going. If there's any more of an impact, we have to.
It's because reserves have gone. You know, you've burnt through what was there. It's now time to rebuild it, isn't it?
Have you taken any
It's almost the survival of the company. That's the route it's got to be. That there's no waiting. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
What our formula though is a win-win with the franchisees, franchisors. I'm sure you know it's a win-win or a lose-lose. The salons are doing well, we're doing well. It's as simple as that. So it's in everyone's interest to make that happen. On the apprenticeship point of view, you know, there are some serious KPIs with recruitment. Now we're right in the midst of recruiting for the new intake for September. We've just launched a new qualification as well. So all these factors, we're tentatively trying to make predictions for. I've just been working with on those areas. But we also, and this is where it dovetails so well with the franchise side, because we have an understanding of where salon owners' minds are. And talking to them isn't necessarily right at the moment about what their future team's going to look like, or it might not be right. So we're having a sensitivity and an understanding in how we can help them as well. So, but definitely, you know, KPIs for us and triggers will be starting to look at that recruitment side on the apprenticeship and making sure that the royalty income as we go forward on a win-win scenario.
Have you taken any external advice? You know, so I know you guys, you know, you've been running the business for a long time. You've also got both dads there as pinnacles as advisors. You know, I think you have an FD too, I'm pretty sure. But have you taken accountants' advice? Have you taken any other financial advice through this period, or you're like, it's all right, we've got this covered? We know what to do.
Do you want to answer that, Anya?
No, to be fair, I mean, obviously we work very closely with our accountants. But I think because what we've been able to do with what we can get hold of financially, we haven't taken outside advice as such, no. Not as of yet.
And so has it been bounce backs or CBILS, the rates relief? What government funding have you guys taken?
Everything.
So the salons, the actual salons, thankfully we were able to get the grants and then have been able to go for the bounce backs.
Yeah.
From a holdings point of view, we weren't eligible for the grants, but we've been able to get bounce back. Plus we've just gone for a normal bank loan because that's the only opportunity we had. Like I say, that throws totally out the water the plan for our finances earlier in the year that we wanted to Kath stronger and in that way. But it's,
when have you forecast that actually you're going to get back onto when are you getting back to where you were? Where does that look like it's going to be?
we have you can't predict that
until we know what sales we will. I mean, now literally that news, we can resume back.
Yeah,
to
fine.
back,
I'll ask you in 2 hours then. Yeah.
Yeah, hurry up and do the planning. I'll ask you in a minute.
Listen, I am conscious that actually you have got a shed load to go and sort, because now that you've got that news, it is like someone's on the starting gun and we're holding you in the pen while everyone else is running, which is unfair.
I've got my phone on the floor and all I can see is it flashing. I'm like,
We'll do finally.
I know, so we'll do Anne finally quickly, and look,
No,
those still on the call, if there are any questions, then do please get them in, because we will, at the end of this, we will let them go. But if you do have any questions, stick them in the chat box. But the 3 things that you wish you had done before shutdown, they don't have to be business, they can be either business or personal, but are there 3 things you really wish you'd done?
For me personally, I feel we were probably slow at the top to realign ourselves. Not slow, but we maybe could have reacted a little bit better, if we're being really honest with ourselves. Leadership is everything. We took the pledge about 4 years ago, and we bought a leadership coach that works strongly, not just with ourselves, but with our franchisees as well. And that's something we've been very strong in. And it's something we would like to carry on with CK Academy. So that's something as well. What else would I have done before shutdown?
Holiday. I mean, that's been a favourite answer.
I don't think there's anything relevant to shutdown that I'd actually done yet.
Fine. I would have got my hair done right on the day before, like everyone else. Yeah. 3 things. What things would you recommend? It doesn't have to be 3, but I guess your big takeaway from this, because I think most people have been on a learning curve, and I think most businesses are coming out of this better, with either better clarity or better processes or whatever it might be. And I know there's been a whole heap of pain along the way for so many businesses, and many businesses haven't made it, but there's still big lessons that have been learned. What was your big lesson?
Absolutely. Look at your teams, analyze your teams. What us hairdressers tend to be is very emotional beings. We're dealing with people, we're dealing with personalities. That personality might have been with you for 20 years, but is that personality and that person necessarily right for your business? So I'm afraid, you know, you're not being fair to them, you're not being fair to your business. So I would really, really ask them to really analyse and look at the teams and look at their future growth, and maybe now could that person do better than what you've got in. So really analyse what you've got, really look at what your teams and productivity, and have confidence in what we do. Yeah, have some real confidence. What we do is great. Hairdressers, again, we tend to have this, oh, we're not good enough, or we're bloody great. We offer an amazing service. You know, not just as hairdressers, we are a community. We are part of that community spirit. We are that people, that holistic. You know, yes, GPs should prescribe us. You know, we don't underestimate. Do not underestimate what we do. Yeah, we're great.
I think that's very, very fair to say. Anya, is there anything that you would add?
Yeah, exactly. Anya, back to you.
No, I think similar in that. I think while people have had time out in the hairdressing industry, we lead such busy lives while we're working. I know many of our own franchisees have really made the most of having time out to really go through everything in their business, understand things better, you know, because again, strengths of hairdressers isn't always the business side. And I know that's what we as franchisors really support them with, but many have really taken the time to get their heads around things.
Yeah.
And again, you don't keep doing the same as what you normally do. You're going back to something that is going to be different. So, you know, keep going on it, take it further, change it up.
Good. Well, look, we are not going to, there's no more questions that have come in. We are not going to keep you from whatever lies ahead, and the sorting that you have to know now, go ahead and do.
No, I don't envy you. Go, go, go.
But look, thank you both for your honesty, for just being on the call today and kind of taking us through it. And it'll be inspirational, I know, to a lot of salons that are going through exactly the same process that you guys have been through. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But go and put on your PPE, go and cut hair. We'll see you all soon. Thank you for joining, everybody. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.